So for people watching this who don't know who Joe Gambino is, how did he rise up? How did he get into power?
Well, Tommy Gambino's, it's a cousin, and Tommy Gambino was also in prison with me. He just passed away, natural causes. And again, Tommy Gambino was another guy, very wealthy, very a businessman, a gentleman. Didn't talk, didn't look for trouble, just did his time, and very well respected. As you know, these guys aren't killers; they're just nice guys. And uh, Tommy was Carlo Gambino's son, and Joe was a cousin. And they do correct time. You know, there's ways of doing time in prison, and there's guys that can do good time, guys do bad time. I mean, maybe, you know, listen, I give Jeannie benefit down for one thing. He could have did 9, 12 years, him and Johnny Kinnick, when they sold heroin. And they took a 50-year bid on the chin out of stupidity because they listened to their brother John, his brother John Gotti Sr. They wouldn't allow him to take a plea where they would have did about 8 years. So if this is about looking out for your brother and looking out for your soldiers, you're supposed to tell him to take the 8. But instead, he was worried about his image, that they're selling drugs, and he made him do 50. So to me, that's not a leader.
Were the Gambinos bumping heads with any other crime families when you were an enforcer?
You know, listen, you always have disputes between families, but it's usually, for the most part, it's worked out by sitting down and having sit downs and working out, because, you know, this life is not about killing each other. It's about making money with each other. And there's good relationships between all the crews. It's not what everybody thinks. The wars start like over the years, the wars started where guys were clipping our guys left and right because we killed Paul Castellano unsanctioned. Gotti caused that. And as our guys are getting killed one after another, we're not killing anybody back. So this is one of the reasons I said he was a soft leader. We're getting uncontested killings, and we're not contesting them. And there's wars during the Colombo days, wars because they split for factions within the family. And Joey Scopo Sr. was another nice guy. Senior Gotti put him in there to take over one faction. He got killed. We didn't do anything about it. But Joey was best friends with Jeannie Gotti growing up together. So that's why they put him in that position. But usually it's that the money situation's cut up properly. The unions are cut up properly. And it's everyday business is about any other business. It's about making money and without killing and without wars. But, you know, like anything else, guys step over the line, do the wrong thing. And in this life, you lose your life for that.
Did you need sort of permission for taking a made man out?
To kill somebody? Do we
Yeah.
need permission? Yeah, you're supposed to go from, listen, we all do it. I did it. You're clipping guys. Jimmy Burke and his son, Frankie Burke, had a situation. He told me it was for his father from an old heroin deal, and me and him went out in Brooklyn, and we killed 2 guys, and I did it with him. And he wasn't with our family yet. Jimmy got life already. Frankie was a good friend of mine. He's dead. He got killed too. But I went and did it unsanctioned. Frankie asked me to take the ride with him. I took it, and then, I did the work with him because he was a friend. But otherwise, if I get caught doing a piece of work, I'm supposed to be killed for it. I understood that.
Yeah.
You said we took Paul Castellano out. Were you part of that crew? And can you describe how he was taken out?
I wasn't part of the hit. I was a young guy, but I was privy to it at the time. Senior again used his friend Angelo Ruggiero as a scapegoat because they got caught on tapes talking about selling coke, and Senior used the excuse of Angelo, and he shelves him later on, but he didn't shelve him. He actually promoted him after the Paul Castellano hit. So that story's bullshit too. He used that as an excuse to go hit Paul. And at the time, Paul had a couple of cases. It wasn't a sanctioned hit from the other families. And what it causes a big rift, but they hit Paul in front of Sparks Steakhouse. I think Sparks on 46th Street. I just did a show there last year. But when they hit him, there was a meeting there, and it was to discuss what was going on in the drug business and what happened with Jeannie and Johnny and these guys. And when he gets out of the car, him and Tommy Bellotti, there's a setup of guys to kill, to make sure Paul doesn't leave that scene. Backup car, it was a backup car at that time, was Sammy Gravano and John Gotti. And Sammy brought his gun, but John never brought a gun to that show. So this is the typical of really what goes on. And this is the typical why people hear me constantly speaking up for Sammy Gravano. And, so people understand, at the time when I was being raised in the Gambino family, I wasn't particularly close to Sammy. I seen him once in a while. I said hello to him. And I even was chastised by Gotti Sr. at one time not to get too friendly with him. I didn't understand at the time. But I guess Senior didn't want me to get close to him because maybe eventually he wanted me to hit him, kill him if he wanted. So he didn't want me to have that feelings for him, so maybe I wouldn't do it. Or I would tip him. And, I wasn't schooled enough at that time. I was a young kid when I first met them. But I look at Sammy as I've said it over and over again. If he wasn't betrayed, it would have been a different era. He was betrayed, completely betrayed. And anybody who listens to the history and follows it, and forget about the United States, this is a different country. So maybe everybody would understand, listen, this guy got completely betrayed. He didn't do anything wrong.
We were in prison with his son, weren't we?
Yeah, so we had an ecstasy trafficking operation in Arizona, and Sammy the Bull was out there. That was their operation. And Wildman was on the chain gang one day with Gerard Gravano. Yeah, so Sammy got nailed a couple of years before us. So Gerard was telling us, all the prosecutors' tricks and all that kind of stuff. I've read his book Underboss as well, so I've come to be familiar with his side of the story. Before, just going back to Paul briefly though, is it true that he was in a replica of the White House, prancing around in his silk pajamas, losing touch with the foot soldiers? So that weakness was shown, kind of.
I don't agree with that.
No, is that?
Listen, everybody's going to have their own opinion. I think he was. Listen. Paul killed more guys as a boss than any of the other guys did, but more than John. So,
wow. And
John didn't kill anybody with his own hand either. So that's bullshit if anybody knows the stories, because somebody just sent me a message again. I heard he did this. Well, you heard wrong. You're hearing bullshit stories. When they killed McBratney, he was there. He didn't kill him. They didn't even do it right. They couldn't get him out of the bar, and Galliano had no choice but to shoot him in the bar. He wasn't the shooter. But, listen, Paul was a big earner. So when Carlo handed it over, I don't think it was just because of family reasons. He understood the relationship with Genevieve's family. He understood the money relation and the power that money brought to the Gambino family. And these guys are businessmen. And so the idea is to make money. It's not to kill. I made a lot of mistakes because I was shooting a lot and killing a lot, but that was also my job for a lot of guys. So, as an organization, if you don't have to kill guys and you can make money, that's the idea. And Paul, I believe, was he was a strong leader. Guys will make the excuse he was greedy, he was taking money. Well, 99% of these guys are sheep. There's 1%, I've said it over and over again, of guys like me making money and killing. And you got some guys that just make money and then the other guys that just kill. But you shouldn't be straightening out all these guys because they're somebody's son. They've never seen a fucking day on the street.
If you're killing though and not making money, what's the sense in that?
Well, and that's the problem, because you got 98% of these guys are deadbeats. They ain't able to earn. They just follow you that makes money, or follows me that's killing guys and making money.
And you got to expect to pay.
Yeah, and so they're crying about Paul or somebody, but go out and earn.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you got guys like Gerard, I don't know him personally and meet him personally. I talked to him on the phone plenty of times, so people that know who he is. Gerard's Sammy's son, but he's also a gentleman. He's a quiet guy. He's low spoken. He's low key, and the father raised him right, actually. And and this is the point. A lot of these guys raised their sons. An example: Patty Catalano was a heroin mover, and his son opened his big mouth to me one day. He thought I gave a fuck who his father was. I tied him up. I put him on lighter fluid all over, and I beat him up, and I was going to put him on fire. I mean, no one gives a fuck who your father is. You're going to respect somebody if you're a gentleman and if he's a tough guy. And if you're a tough guy and not being a gentleman, somebody eventually is going to kill you too.
So with Paul gone, the different factions of the Gambinos scramble for the leadership?
No, it wasn't scrambled. It was, it was a coup, and Gotti had it arranged. And he awarded himself the position. But the problem is he wasn't capable to run in that position. He wasn't an earner. I just recently did a show, and the guy asked me, it was Gotti. Will you tell me you're a better earner than Gotti? And I should have answered that a little different. I would say, Gotti fucker couldn't earn 2 cents. Yeah, I was a 10 times better earner than him. But his guys were earners. There's a difference. His guys were bringing in all kinds of money from heroin, construction. He couldn't. He never made a penny from anything. Sammy made the construction money. Guys like Johnny Koenig made the heroin money. Guys like Mark Ryder. But John himself, he wasn't capable. He was capable of running a gang. He wasn't capable of running a mob. And it was a big mistake, him coming into position.
So if Gotti actually never killed anyone, what gives him the right to take that position?
Because he had killers around him. He had serious guys around him. Guys like Johnny Koenig was a killer. Tony Roach was a killer. Willie Boy Johnson, although he was doing what John Gotti Jr. was doing, meeting the government queen of the day, informant, was a tough guy killer. You know, he had guys that were killers, no doubt. And that's what made him strong, because he aligned himself around some serious shooters and earners. But him particularly, if you follow the history of him when he was younger, he couldn't even hijack a truck right. So and that's the truth about the guy. But I give him credit for other things. You know, the guy maneuvered people. He did do that. He put himself in a position. He knew when to take opportunities. He took it. He surrounded himself with guys like Sammy Gravano and Frankie DeChico. You know, but when people see the history of this and they don't understand the mob, when they kill Paul Castellano, there's nobody to contest it. There's Peter Castellano, who's not a tough guy. He shows up 2 weeks later to play cards at our club because he's not a tough guy. The older guy is Joe Gallo. He's an old man. You know, Tommy Gambino doesn't want no part of that. He's a gentleman. He's a multimillionaire himself. He's not a gangster, a hardcore guy like that. He's just a nice guy. So who's going to contest this murder? He's got Frankie Loke in the Bronx on his side. He's got Frankie DeChico. So God, he does make some right moves. He aligns himself with all the young guys that are tough, and the guys that have the power, like Frankie DeChico and Sammy Gravano in Brooklyn and Staten Island, and Frankie in the Bronx. Nobody contested within our family. The problem he was going to have is Vic Amuso with the Lucchese family and Gas Pipe and the Chin with the West Side. And these guys were going to hit Gotti. No doubt if he doesn't go to jail, he's going to end up dead. It's just a matter of time. And they blow up a car, and he's lucky he is in the car. It was the wrong guy was in the car. was in the car. And guys are getting caught on tape. Bobby Manning gets caught on tape trying to hit Gotti, and Gotti's going to get hit. The FBI goes to his house once or twice and warns him. We got on tape. We heard you're going to get hit. Gotti acts like he's not worried about it, but he was very worried about it. And it was only a matter of time before they hit him. And because of the way he carried the media around him, it was so hard to get near him. And I think that's one of the things he purposely did. He understood the media around him is almost like having law enforcement around him, which law enforcement did come around him because of the way he behaved.
It's his blanket of protection, isn't it?
Yeah. And, so the media is for guys that are not active, not for an active boss.
Yeah.
And so he destroyed what Cosa Nostra was. When you talk about Andy Ruggiano, you're talking about guys who don't even know who he is, right? You guys don't know who he is. Nobody knows who he is, but he was one of the most powerful bosses around our area. And Gotti just stepped into his position because Andy went to jail. Later on, he comes home, he gets sick, he dies right away. But these are the guys that, if you're going to make movies about or do shows about, it's got to be about somebody like him. Guys like Robert, Angles, people don't know who he is. He's a guy that got away from the life and he preaches now. But these are tough guys from the street that were quiet. And he never became a made guy, became an associate, but he was known, really known on the street. So you get guys like him, and you look back and you say, if you're going to follow this life's about being quiet, making money, being a gentleman, just what you said earlier, and trudge along a little bit, low key, and you can last.
Yeah.
When you go out like Gotti did, of course you're not going to last. You last 4 years. The public, looks at him because the media built something up that's really not true. That doesn't exist. But it's probably the single worst thing that happened to the Gambino family ever, that Paul Castellano getting killed.